So here I have done an illustration of Lamu, the other members of the Vikings / 6 kings, and the 3 great kings Poseidon, Pluton, and Uranus. I also could have included other key members who I believe would have been part of the alliance, but I ran out of time and patience to do that, so let me know if you want me to do the rest of the characters, and maybe I'll get onto that at some point. But let's just focus on Lamu for now. Here's a recap from everything I've talked about so far. Lamu was a giant with a mix of other races including the Jovians. Lamu and his brothers, Taimu and Imu, were slaves from a young age. Lamu is a pun on these words, and combined with the initial D, he becomes Doramu, as in the drums of liberation. He was King Saturn of the Vikings, and he was also the king of the Great Imagination. In other words, Lamu was Santa, who ruled over the North Pole. So let me get into some details. So if Lamu's name is a pun on lamb, shouldn't he have ram horns and white hair? So you see, I actually think that would be quite boring and would end up with a character that doesn't play with the concept of what is good or evil. I think that by giving him a bull horn instead and giving him a scar to resemble the Baphomet, he becomes a far more interesting character, especially if he's meant to represent Santa. All that red and demonic vibes, which I also pulled from the descriptions of Krampus and the Devil, would also, I think, contrast really well with when he is in his awakened form and looking more godlike. Plus, I really wanted to give him a bullhorn because that feels more like a shonen manga character, and because of all the references to bulls and their connections to Luffy in the story. And in case you don't know, Luffy's star sign is Taurus. Also, I believe that Lamu's 3 brothers will have different mix of attributes drawing from lambs, goats, and bulls. So for example, Taimu will have the body of a bull like Blackbeard, but the horns of a ram. Lamu has the name of a lamb, or a ram, but has the horns of a bull. And his D-clan is seen as the enemies of the gods, which I previously tied to goats. Imu has the calmness of a lamb, the horns of a goat, but maybe is easy to see red, like a bull. And in case you're wondering, the design of the eye patch here is called the Eye of the Tao. It is a symbol of the island of Lamu. I've mentioned this island a few times in this video already, but Lamu is an island off the shores of Kenya. It is also a UNESCO site due to its cultural significance. Since the island was visited by many traders, sailors, and travelers during its early years, the island became incredibly diverse. The island's prosperity is also credited to their slave trade. Now the symbol, the Eye of the Tao, with the crescent moon resembling an eye and a star above it, was originally used by the navigators who engraved this symbol on their marine vessels. Nowadays it is a symbol of Lamu Island and is seen everywhere on the island. The symbol apparently originated from over 2,000 years ago. Their ancestors mostly specialized in boat making and came up with this design. To their ancestors, it was a guiding spirit in the waters. The symbol is also relevant in that before the invention of the compass, people relied on the moon and the stars for navigation. So that's why I included the Eye of the Tao into Lamu's eye patch. It just felt like it worked and I liked it. Plus, it looks like the simplified version of the Whitebeard Pirate's Jolly Roger that's actually seen on Marco's chest. And since we're talking about doodles on chests, let's talk about the symbol on Lamu's chest. So this is a symbol that I think is pronounced Do, which I believe is the original reading of the initial D. So what makes me say this? Alright, so buckle up. In order to explain that, I first need to quickly explain how I appointed the other characters in this illustration to their different titles, but because I don't want to go through and explain all of that in words, because this video is already way too long, I will put up this graphic right here to broadly explain my rationales. You can pause the video now to take a look if you want. Alright, so assuming that you've already taken a good look at the graphics now, this is what I'm thinking. So the fishmen of Mercury, the water planet, the Lunarians of Mars, the fire planet, have references to elemental powers. We also see here that the minks have Electro, the elemental power of electricity, and Birkins with their large wings is the elemental power of the wind. By this logic, giants of Saturn, the ground planet, should also have a reference to an element of ground. Now, am I suggesting that giants can earthbend? No. I think it's more of a reference to their might as in their earth-shattering strength. Saturn is also the second largest planet after Jupiter, so fitting too that giants are the second largest race in the One Piece world after ancient giants. Lamu being King Saturn also makes sense to me because Saturnalia is a Christmas celebration, which leads me back to the symbol on Lamu's chest. I believe that this symbol represents the sound of Do, which represents the giant's home planet of Saturn, or Dose in Japanese. Now, am I trying to say that this symbol looks like Saturn with its rings? Well, that's just a happy accident, but let me explain. Let's look at music, one of the key themes of One Piece. Do you know the song from The Sound of Music called Do Re Mi? It's a Fanmui song, also popular in Japan by the way, which basically teaches kids how to read and sing musical notes. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do are the syllables assigned to each note of the musical scale C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. A syllabic approach is used in singing, since the syllables are easier to sing than the letters. So the syllable of do is assigned to the note of C, the first note of the musical scale. And now if we look at the whole note of C, this is what you see. So this is where I have gotten the design for Lamu's tattoo, a musical symbol with the syllable of do, which is the note of the C, a syllable which means ground in kanji. And of course it's a happy accident that the symbol literally looks like a man wearing a straw hat and also looks like the planet of Saturn, the ground planet. Do, also written as a different kanji, can be written like this, meaning path. This is used in the word for martial arts, budo, and it's also used in the words of various martial arts like judo and aikido. If you're a fan of Naruto, Naruto often talks about his ninja way, which is nindo in Japanese. Dawado Ichimonji, meaning straight line through the path of harmony, and Zoro's treasured sword also has a do kanji meaning path. So, is that it? After all these years, that's what we get. Doesn't really have the impact or romanticism of some of the other theories out there like the dawn of the world or the dawn of the drums. But here's the thing, I only said that that's how the D should be read as. Reading the D as do doesn't limit what the D symbolizes. So being King Saturn is how Lamu got his initial, but to him, the D could personally symbolize dawn or even drum. Even in the Do Re Mi song, the lyric states that do stands for do, a female deer. But in the Japanese lyrics, which are all different by the way, the do stands for donuts. And if we look at the illustration and the characters, to Amatsuki D Kitsu, the D is doki, as in doki doki, the sound of a heart beating fast. For Trafalgar D Water, the D is guard, as in guard and protect. For Nefertari D Lily, the D is to lead, reed, or reed. A reed is a weaving material used by the ancient Egyptians and also a type of instrument. For Goldie Bird, its name in Japanese becomes Goldobado or Gold Bird, as in the phoenix. And for Jaguar D Atlas, its name in Japanese becomes Haguwarudo Atlas, Hug World Atlas. But wait, if the D is meant to be read as a do, why did Oda correct this multiple times in the story? Like, didn't Dr. Kureha say that Gold Roger's name is read as Goldie Roger? Even Roger himself is seen correcting his name as Goldie Roger, not Gold Roger or Goldudo Roger in Japanese. And this is after he learned the meaning of the D. Well, Dr. Kureha simply stated that Roger's given name was Goldie Roger because she knows about the Will of D, and she knew his original name before he was crowned the King of Pirates and the world changed his name to Gold Roger. And as for Roger, even if the D can be read as Do, his name would still be Goldu Do Roger, not Goldudo Roger. I also think that gold wasn't the most important thing to him, so the D combined with the gold probably didn't hit home for him. However, what if it was written as Goldu Doroja? This would read as the goal is mud, or the goal is a mud jar. Could this be Oda hinting to us that the treasure left on Laugh Tale is not gold, but it is an earthen vase holding a certain sake perhaps? Or vase? Vase. I don't know, I've been talking too long. It's also quite funny if any of this is true, since it was probably the world government who was involved in changing or hiding the D in Roger's name before the papers crowned him the King of the Pirates, Goldudo Roger, or Gold Roger. But by doing so, they revealed the true reading of the D. But you know what? What does the D mean to you? Because I believe that this was all a social experiment conducted by Oda on you and I, the fans. He was giving us the greatest gift, the ability and freedom of the imagination. Because look, we have been trying to figure this out for the last 20 years, stretching our minds and our imaginations in every possible way to try to come up with the answer. And we have come up with many answers, but we also have answers that resonate the most with us, and that is the true essence of the D. The freedom to seek our own path, the door, and to come to our own answers. Because you see, if you think about it, having the D mean just one thing actually goes against freedom. We should all be given the freedom to choose and imagine our own personal meanings for a symbol. The same symbol for one person will not necessarily mean the same thing for another person. So in that sense, the D is a symbol of freedom. So the will of D is the will of those who strive for their own sense of freedom. So let me know what you think. I like it personally because it really resonates with what One Piece means to me.